Hello everybody, hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I would like to share with you all my final thoughts on the Elementum button lock one. Now, I don't know if it's traditionally called the button lock one. I'm just going to call it the button lock one because the button lock 2 is the thing, even though this is the original and this did garbage in sales. Now that I have it in hand, I don't know why it did so bad. This thing's actually pretty freaking sweet. I got a lot of good to say about this, like a lot of good. But there's a little bit of confusion because in a lot of areas, this is considered a gravity knife. Not too sure how, but the button is what really locks it. This is essentially the equivalent of a Milwaukee fastback. You can't get that thing out without decompressing the button on the handle. This is the same freaking thing. How is that not illegal? Because it's a utility blade? I don't know. I don't care. I'm gonna continue carrying it because it's freaking awesome. Anyway, besides that, I don't recommend carrying it if you don't feel comfortable about carrying it, of course. But we got 6 size comparison size knives. We're gonna take the weight. Now the weight of this is going to be a little bit different because there are some customized Flightanium scales that I got on a sweet freaking deal. That's why I picked them up. Originally this came with black G10. This was just in like an all blacked out super tactical variation of it. I also have a aftermarket tie clip there as well, so this is a little bit different than something that I would typically review because I enjoy reviewing, well, not enjoy, I prefer reviewing things in their stock form. But I had too much time on my hands at one point and a little bit of money in my account for once, and I decided to pick up some stuff to do some light modification. So yeah, this was originally all blacked out with bent steel clip and semi-textured G10 scales. It was wonderful as it is there, but I wanted to add a little bit of flair to it, something fun. So I went ahead and got some scales, and I did not a mirror polish, as you can see, but it is reflective enough. It's a fingerprint magnet, yes, and it's not going to stay good looking past really this right here. But yeah, just wanted to show you guys what this thing looks like. Now, the Flightanium scales that are on here, they were a little faulty in the way of I guess how wide the holes were to accept the body hardware, the clip, and the pivot. I actually had to take my Dremel. It's kind of annoying. I really hope that no one else had to deal with this because that's kind of shitty on Flightanium's end. This was also released like 3 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long, but this model is 3 years old at least. Flightanium has been around for just a little bit longer than that. So this is one of the first products, or just one of within the handful of first products that they ever first put out there. Even still, I had to take my Dremel and actually, widen the holes a little bit to accept the scales, to accept the actual pivot and hardware, just to make sure that everything lines up. Now it's great. I have zero wiggle, like nothing's gonna just like fall off or anything. It's how it should have been. Not that big of a deal. I had the tool, I had the time, I did it. But hopefully whoever gets something like this or wants to pursue a similar build, hopefully you don't have to go through that. But fair warning, you may have to. So got 6 size comparison size knives. Let's start with the large ones. This is the Spyderco Manix 2. It is just a tad bit longer overall length, but might as well just call it, the same overall. This is definitely larger. I don't really think I've ever checked out anything that's larger than this thing. This is the Microtech Knives MSI. Still got some lock stick trying to work out on that thing. It's not gonna fail, that's for sure. It's just gonna take my fingers with it, ripping them off because of how sticky that lock is. CMB Main Knives Predator for a medium-sized carry, and this is pretty darn close in overall length, but I think just a little bit shorter than the Elementum. We have a Free Tiger model FT2103. It is quite shorter in overall length. Did some of these a little bit out of order. I mixed the mediums and smalls, but not a big deal. Here we have another medium. This is a Civivi Vision FG. Pretty darn close in overall length, damn near the same. And the Elite Spyderco Native 5. So, of course, that thing is tiny in comparison to everything that I show off. Alrighty. And let's take the weight, which again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a little silly to do so because it's going to be quite different than what it is in stock form, but just to show you guys. 4 ounces, 4.1, not that crazy. When you look at something like that and you actually feel it in hand, yeah, it makes sense. You have proud steel liners. There is quite a bit of weight relieving, which I absolutely appreciate that. But then the very thin titanium scales over and the mill tie clip, these things add a little bit of weight. Chances are stock form, it was probably somewhere around like 3.2, maybe around 3 ounces, something like that. It couldn't have been much. Anyway, this blade, let me tell you guys about this freaking thing. This is about the thinnest freaking hollow grind I've ever experienced. A lot of blade here in length overall, very utilitarian. This is a drop point, spear point, typical elementum blade, right? But it is a whole lot longer. This is a dream to use in the workplace. There's no flipper tab in the way. I could choke up on it and it feels freaking awesome. There is some light jumping back here. I wish it was a little bit more aggressive, just a little bit more aggressive, but if you press down enough on it, it is meaningful, I guess. It's the thought that counts, I suppose. But preferably, wish it was a little bit deeper, that they were a little bit closer, a little bit sharper, and maybe if it extended out, maybe 50% more than what this is. So maybe up to like right there where my nail is at. That would have been a pretty nice spot because that's where my thumb lands. Really just right here on my thumb is where I feel the jimping there if I'm getting up on it. Now I do wear large to extra large size gloves, which isn't impressive at all. But I feel like it's important to say that because those are my glove size and I have relatively slim fingers, so I don't really have a difficult time manipulating this thing. Taking it in and out of the pocket with the standard clip, with the mill tie clip, excellent, wonderful. With the original semi-textured G10 scales or this polished titanium, it's a wonderful experience. It's just that this is a little slick, but I did this. This is my fault, so I chose to do this, so I got to deal with it. Even still, I don't find this thing slipping out of the grip often, but there are micarta variations and the G10 ones. If you want to stick with those, go right ahead. You're gonna save some money there by not getting aftermarket parts that are probably not gonna fit right. Beautiful, beautiful tip. Now this thing is just, as I mentioned earlier, stupid thing. I gotta be a little careful not to do anything dumb with this, of course. Very dainty, delicate tip. This is for precise slicing tasks. This is something that's just going to fly through all kinds of material. And I've been putting it through its paces for sure. I've even gotten some pretty good scratches on, let's see if I could show this off. Can I? I've gotten some pretty good scratches above the actual black wash there. Let's see if I could pick some of them up. They're kind of in the middle right here. They kind of come and go in the light. They're there, I promise. There's scratches on here. I promise I use my knives. I don't just shine them up and put them away and do nothing with them. But let's talk about the actual elephant in the room here. Is this a gravity knife? I'm gonna say no, because it locks until you interact with something that's on the handle. This could be the same as a regular button lock. Let's say this was your favorite way to deploy it. This is a CGRB Pyrite Light. Beat to hell, as you can see already, and I've only had it for a couple weeks. But it's a wonderful knife, and it's found its way in his pocket a lot, like a lot, especially during a barbecue. That's why it looks like shit up here. But if releasing it from the button was your favorite means of deployment, and technically, by all intents and purposes, it is locked until you release it, but there is technically some tension acting as a pseudo detent there. I would say and argue that this is damn near the same thing. Or the Vision FG. Imagine if the studs just fell off and you didn't want to buy new studs. You're not going to get that blade out any other way than using the super lock here in the back. Is this a gravity knife? I'm using gravity to deploy it, yes. But is this legal? Yes, it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell myself, whether you want to believe it or not, I don't believe that this is truly a gravity knife. I have to interact with something. I have to find something to touch that's not going to be like super tactical, where I could just grab it and just whip it out and, you know, and shank somebody with it because they, you know, took my parking spot at Walmart. No, this is something where I take it out of my pocket. I have to find that bulbous button, depress the button, and then flick out the blade with momentum and gravity. Yes, as a lot of other people do that aren't the biggest fans of the fancy flickety flick of flicking knives. So a lot of people do a little bit of wrist flick. That's okay, not a big deal. And this is something that people who aren't the biggest fans of all the fancy flicking motions would probably enjoy. So is this something that would be preferred by somebody who maybe have a little bit of arthritis or maybe not the best dexterity? I think so. I think this is a pretty good option. And also, it is on the larger side. People like big knives, and I'm not the biggest fan of large knives, but you know what? This thing is just so damn good. It has found its way in the pocket a lot, like a lot. And my absolute favorite thing about it is that it's not just the cheapest little lock that you can accidentally just bump into and then the blade just flops out. And you can see there, I've missed it multiple times. I really gotta press it down in there. This is not a typical style plunge lock. I believe this is referred to as like a leaf spring lock. There is a liner on the inside that a plunge looking portion sits on the very lip of it. And let's see if I could kind of get in there. Sorry, my fingers are gross and crusty. I use my hands for work. But you can see there, yeah, that's how that works. So there's no actual spring. And I'm an idiot because in my unboxing of this, I made a comment unknowingly. And I said, hey, well, you know, this is a button lock knife. It has, you know, springs and stuff. It would have been nice if they included an extra spring. They can't include an extra spring because that would include giving a whole nother liner side. They could if they really wanted to, right? But chances are they would never do that. Not at this price point. Well under $100, I believe. It was like $60. You could probably find them a lot cheaper than that when they go on super sale. I did buy it on Amazon. I got the scales from Blade HQ, the clip from Amazon as well. And I'll link down all the stuff that I can if you guys want to pursue a similar build like this. But I think it's really fun. I mean, all in, I think it was just around $100. And to get something that is just this fun to actually use in the workplace. Now, some people are gonna say it's not a fidgety knife because there's only one way to interact with it. I beg to differ. The sound of it, actually using this thing, just taking it out of the pocket, doing the tiniest little wrist flick, making your cuts, doing what you gotta do, and putting it away, and it's done. It's great. It serves its purpose. I feel extremely safe carrying this thing over any other button lock I've ever experienced because this truly locks it. I can't actually take this blade out at all. So in a way, this may even be child safe because I, as a grown-ass adult, still have a little bit of time fumbling around with how much pressure I need to put in to disengage that lock. So if this is left out on the table, I have the confidence in saying that it may be a little difficult for somebody who is unauthorized to use something like this to actually get it out and possibly harm themselves or harm somebody else. So with that being said, I don't think that this is something that could be just passed along to somebody else. If you have a frequent person in your workplace, and I know plenty of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, you have that one guy or gal that is always in need of a knife. They don't want to buy their own knife because they're too cheap or they don't believe in knives until they actually need it. I know plenty of people like that, and that's okay. That's all right. I don't expect people to have the same amount of enthusiasm about knives as you and I do, right? But this isn't something that I would want to hand to somebody. And I learned that the hard way. I did pass this off to a couple people in my workplace, and they were just like, what the hell is this? I don't know how it works. I don't like it. And I would tell them, dude, it's a freaking Milwaukee Fastback. You press a button and it goes out. And they're like, oh, okay, I got it. And they would just whip it out like nothing. Just get it out there like nothing. And it was great. So they figured it out, but there was a little bit more explanation and brain fog throughout the interaction when trying to have somebody use it. And in the workplace, you don't want to be standing there, just with a knife between two people, just kind of fumbling around and looking like idiots and looking like you don't know what you're doing with the item. So I don't really believe that this is something that you would want to just pass off to somebody else to use real quick. I think something like a liner lock or a traditional back lock is something that's a little bit safer. Even things that confuse a lot of other people are things like the super lock, crossbar locking style knives. For as long as they've been out, they still confuse a lot of non-knife people. And as simple as this is, and you could just give this to somebody and say, hey, think of Milwaukee Fastback. Okay, chances are they probably know what that is because of how popular it is. And they may get it on the first time, they may not. They might let it swing down and like catch their nail or something like that, or their finger. But the blade, it is super thin, super hollowed out. It has little to no mass behind it, and even with a wicked edge on it, it's not gonna bury itself down to the bone. It's not. So I think this is a pretty cool offering that, and I know it's never gonna happen, but I think it would be really cool if Civivi revisited the idea of the leaf spring, if I'm referring to it in the proper term here. I think it'd be really cool if they revisited this type of button lock, because this thing's just absolute. It's solid. I love using this thing, and chances are I am in the smaller percentage of people that actually enjoy this, because people love to fidget with their knives, and not everybody's going to agree that this is a fidgety knife. No, you can't do certain fancy this, that, and the other flicks, but in use, this is pretty darn sweet, and I like it, and I'm definitely going to be an advocate for it in the future. It's going to stick around in the collection for quite some time. I put plenty of scratches already on it, so it's not like I'm going to sell it anytime soon, but I'm going to have a good time with it, for sure. The finish on the scales is definitely going to change in the near future when I have some time. Just practice with different anode colors and things like that. Titanium works with really high-end titanium, so I'm able to really see the full spectrum of color for the most part. I would really like to do some semi-polished green. I think that would be really cool, but that's about it. There's not a whole lot more that I need to be said. The execution of the knife, for how long ago it was made, I think it has stood the test of time, and it could hold its own against anything that Civivi has made to this date when it comes to usability, the build quality, and it just works. It's what Civivi does. They bring affordable actual good knives to the market. So that's why I do enjoy it quite a bit, and you can spice it up a little bit if you want. So blade, incredible. 14C28N. I know I took forever to talk about that, but I just assumed that you guys knew that. It's a very common blade material that Civivi used at that time, and they even still use it a lot now, but they've kind of moved over to the side a little bit with Nitro V. They're kind of interchangeable in a lot of people's minds, but whatever, not a big deal. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because I play more videos and content coming your guys this way. With that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.